I know he waiting in that room naked. Oh, can you just see it? That bony white man with a snatchback laying on a big king-size bed, just a pair of Speedos. Ugh. I never did get used to the idea of being a part-time mom. The terms of my divorce gave me visitation rights to see Dante for about 4 hours a day, for 4 days every other month. And even then, I had to fly all the way out to California and see him in a hotel room just to do that. I hated traveling back to Phil's turf, but I did. After our successes at Madison Square Garden and the Baths, that's a club, I continued doing concerts with the girls through the rest of 1974. But nothing ever matched the excitement of those shows. We spent most of our time marching in and out of Odie's reviews, and that got pretty depressing after a while. I was barely 30 years old, and everywhere I went, people were calling me an oldie. But whether it was good or bad, my Odie's career finally came to an end during the holiday season of 1974. That was the year Dick Clark signed the Ronettes to take part in a rock and roll revival show he was staging at the Flamingo Hotel. And I'll never forget my nightmare in Las Vegas. Child, leave it up to Phil. Phil called her, "Hey bitch, it's me again. Gecko Spector. Hey girl." So you know I'm gonna kill you as soon as you get up on that stage, right? Ooh, see you later. She's saying to him, "Phil, I done let everybody know. Don't let you nowhere near the Flamingo." He was like, "You think I literally do it myself?" "No, girl. That's why we hire a hitman, girl. And he gonna hit your ass tonight while you on stage at the Flamingo." Yeah. Guess what Ronnie does? Get drunk. Because she ain't going to her AA meetings no more. She get filthy, pissy, drunk. I decided to find Dick Clark and get his advice. But by the time I got down to the showroom, he was already gone. So because she can't find Dickety Clockety, she runs her ass to the bar. Ciao. Bang. Bang. I grabbed my nose and sucked down a vodka and tonic. "One more," I told the bartender. I felt so much better after that second drink that I was sure a third would do the trick. 5 vodka and tonics later, my problems were solved. I stumbled into the backstage area that night, but Dick couldn't ignore the fact that I was too drunk to make it through even one verse of Walking in the Rain at the final dress rehearsal. "Ronnie," he said, steering me over to a quiet corner backstage, "you're in no shape to go on tonight. I'm sending you up to your room." "I'm sorry, Dick," I slurred. "I just didn't want the hitman to get me." I was trying to give him an explanation, but it was useless. He had no idea what I was talking about, and he had better things to do than listen. It was already noon when I crawled into a cab the next day with Chip and Denise. I told the driver to take us to the airport. The girls didn't say a word, which was actually a great relief for me, considering the circumstances. I told them how sorry I was, but there didn't seem to be much else to say after that. As the taxi pulled out of the driveway, I turned to take one last look at the giant marquee. The Flamingo already had a couple of workers up there changing the sign. Y'all know, if you hear snorting and stuff, that's Lou. Anyway, "Ronnie Ronette," John said, giving me a hug. "I was just thinking about you." Then he swung around and picked up a 45 from a big stack of records next to his portable stereo on the floor. "Have you heard this?" he asked, reaching over to put the record on. "It's the brand new Phil Spector single, but you're not going to believe it." He played the record, and I heard what sounded a lot like "Baby, I Love You," except that it was slowed down to a funeral march. The record sounded so muddy. It could have been recorded underwater. Wow, I said. Is that playing at the right speed? 45 RPMs? Who is it? I asked. It's Cher. Cher? I gasped. Phil produced a record for Cher? Yeah, she's buried in that mix somewhere, John said. Can you believe this is a Phil Spector production? I couldn't. When the record ended, John picked it up off the turntable and held it at arm's length. What happened to that guy, Ronnie? I think the poor bastards completely lost it. This is around the time that he had left Yoko Ono, messed with the girl May Ping or Mang Ping, something like that. And now he done dumped Mang Ping and went back to the Yoko Ono. I told you, Libra men are weasels. They will look you in your face. No, I don't want that girl no more. Her breath stink. I don't want her. No. Ugh, no. And then go right back over her house and give her a baby. Dave Zahn called me in March of 1976. He had a gig he thought I might want to do, a small club in Jersey. The pay's not great, but you'll have an audience, he told me. I was getting pretty sick of sitting around the house by that time, so I told Dave I'd do the show. If he could dig up a couple of new background singers for me, since I hadn't seen Chip or Denise since Vegas. Yeah, Chip ain't got time for you and your bullshit, girl. Chip about to be in the Claudine movie. It's a small spot, but she dead. A couple of years later, she about to be Penny's mama. She ain't got time to be fucking around with no drunk-ass Ronnie Spector. Fine, he said. I'll send a couple of singers by your place tomorrow morning. House 10 o'clock. Better make it noon. Then he hung up. A few minutes later, the phone rang again. It was May Pang. She called me a few times since John left her to go back to Yoko, and we got to be friends after a little while. I've got house seats for David Bowie's show tonight at Madison Square Garden. You want to go? I didn't know a damn thing about David Bowie, but I figured why not. And that was the start of my little affair with David Bowie. A sad, funny, and very short story. May and I went down to Madison Square Garden and sat in the best seats in the house. We were so close to the stage that Bowie could see us almost as well as we could see him. After the show, May dragged me to this restaurant where they were having a big reception for Bowie. I hate those kinds of things, I told her, but she insisted we go anyway. So I went to the restaurant, but meeting David Bowie was the last thing on my mind. I couldn't have talked to him even if I wanted to. He was sitting at a big private table that had been roped off from the rest of the place. There wasn't anything happening at this reception, and I was all set to go when this guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Mr. Bowie requests the pleasure of your company." Oh! Remember, y'all? When David Bowie wanted to get some of the Tina Turner, but she was fucking around the first time. She didn't want to get a David Bowie some of that Tina Turner vagina. Eventually, Tina Turner said yes. I had to laugh. May Pang gave me a wink, and I followed this guy over to Bowie's table. Two other guys lifted the ropes to let me by, and David Bowie greeted me with a big smile. "I'm so glad you came up," he said. "Please have some dinner." So I sat down and ate. I thought David was a little strange, and I could tell that he had a pretty high opinion of himself. You know why he got a high opinion of himself? Girl. But for some reason, I was attracted to anyone who had that much confidence. We all are attracted to confidence. Maybe I thought some of it might rub off on me. I could also see that he really liked me. So when he invited me up to the party in his room at the Plaza, I thought, what the hell? I certainly didn't have anything else going on in my life. We took a limousine over to the Plaza, and when we got to his suite, it was filled with these really hip types who spoke with British accents and wore $1,000 watches. Most of them were hanging around a long glass coffee table that was literally dusted with white, thick powder. Chad, Booger Sugar is always close. I only turned my head to look at them for about 3 seconds, but that was all the time it took for David to disappear. I felt completely out of place around all these snotty people, but I figured I'd try to make conversation until David decided to come back and rescue me. Yeah, he's going to rescue you, all right. He's going to rescue you with his dick, I said, walking up to the glass table. Can I try some of that? There must have been 12 people around the table, but not one of them said a word. They all just looked at me like, who is this piece of shit that David dragged home? And how long do we have to put up with her? Now, I don't know about that, Ronnie Spector. I don't know why you absorbed that. And if they did think that way, you should have cussed all them bitches out. Then one of the guys finally took pity and handed me a little straw. Thanks, I said. I leaned down and snorted up what felt like an ounce of this booger sugar into my nose. From all the stories I'd heard about this stuff, I expected some kind of magic, but all it did was make my nose run. I ran into the bathroom to get some Kleenex, and when I came out, there was a guy standing in the hallway with a big snifter of cognac. David's waiting for you, he said, handing me the cognac. Follow me. Oh my God. I know he waiting in that room naked. Oh, can you just see it? That bony white man with a snatchback laying on a big king-size bed, just a pair of Speedos. I was so glad to be rescued from that party. Yeah. But you're going to need a life preserver for what's waiting for you in that room, girl. I would have followed this guy anywhere. He led me to the closed doors and pointed to the doorknob with 2 fingers. Then he walked away. I swung the door open and walked into this huge bedroom that was lit up as bright as Yankee Stadium. I heard music, but I couldn't tell where it was coming from until I glanced past the gigantic king-size bed and saw Bowie sitting on the floor. Oh, girl, he about to do you on the floor, girl. Completely naked, popping cassette into a portable tape player. One look at this guy and I could tell how excited he was to see me. Very. I wasn't really into sex in those days. I was a drinker. And when you drink a lot, it sometimes takes away your sex drive. But something told me I wasn't going to have any trouble in that department. Sure enough, we made love right there on the floor. And we didn't even bother to kick the cassettes out of the way. We climbed up on the bed afterwards. Everyone else at the party was doing booger sugar, but David and I just lay there drinking cognac from the big crystal snifters. I tried to go to sleep, but there was so much noise that I finally just reached over and slipped my blue jean skirt back on. I've got to get out of here, David. Where you off to? He asked. Back to reality, I said. I'm going home. Then he asked if he could come along. He said he could do with a little peace and quiet himself, but I got the feeling that wasn't all he wanted. Girl, he gonna fuck you in your house, on your float. Let's go, I said. His limousine dropped us off at my place on York Avenue, and we were back on the floor within 2 minutes. But we barely started making love when we heard the sound of running water in the kitchen. Girl, y'all wasn't making love. Okay, you might have been making love, but David Bowie was fucked. I knew she had the keys to my home, and it wasn't unusual for her to spend the night over there. But why did she have to pick tonight? Your mother, Bowie asked. He looked at me like I was joking, but when he saw that I wasn't, he started laughing. Your mother, Bowie asked. He looked at me like I was joking, but when he saw that I wasn't, he started laughing out loud. Your mother? He asked, still chuckling. Oh, Ronnie, that's so quaint. I didn't like being teased, and I had a good idea how to shut him up. I ended up dragging him off to my bedroom where we fell asleep eventually. The doorbell sounded louder than a fire alarm when it woke us up the next morning. Can't you stop that bloody noise? David growled from under a pillow. No, I said, somebody's at the door. Who in the world would come by at this hour? I glanced at the clock. It's not all that early, David. It's already a little afternoon. He didn't say anything else, so I figured he'd gone back to sleep. Then the doorbell rang again. Well, he said, who the hell would come by at 12 noon? Noon, of course. That's when it hit me. Dave Zahn was supposed to be sending those 2 girls over at noon. That had to be them. I didn't care. Show or no show, I was in no shape to rehearse any new Ronettes today. I pulled my other pillow over my head and tried to go back to sleep, but the doorbell just kept ringing and ringing until I finally gave in. I carried my tired bones out to the living room and buzzed up these two skinny black girls, one tall and one short. "Hi," the tall one said. "David Zahn said you might be just waking up. He told us to keep ringing until you answered." "Uh-huh," I mumbled. "Thanks, Dave." Then I had them wait in the living room while I ran back to check on David. But he was gone by the time I got to the bedroom. I figured he must have jumped into his clothes and snuck out the back way. And sure enough, I ran to the front window just in time to see him disappear into a cab. "Your boyfriend?" the short girl asked. "Not exactly," I said. And then I couldn't resist. "That was David Bowie, guy!" "Oh, uh-huh," the tall one said. "Sure. I had a feeling that would be the last I'd see of David for a while." And it turned out to be right. "Yeah, girl, because don't you know that David Bowie liked to have random casual sex, girl? Until he married Iman. Do Iman know that you fucked her husband, guy?" My night with Bowie wasn't exactly typical, but I did have a pretty strange social life in those days. My career sure wasn't taking up too much of my time in the first few months of 1976, so I pretty much went out with whoever was around. I feel like